My mission is to empower as many creators and partners that we have around the world to help inspire their communities to just live a healthier and fitter life.
Hey, Calum, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it being on here today.
Of course, it's Gymshark had been in the industry of influencer marketing for quite a good time, so I'm quite excited. And some people are saying that basically Gymshark is what invented the influencer marketing as we know it right now. I'm curious also to know your opinion on that. But before getting into that, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself and just in a couple of minutes to learn about you professionally and personally. We usually use this thing called MAP. So the mission, like what do you aim to achieve? Your achievements, any notable milestone in your life, could be either professionally or personally. And the last one is the purpose. So why you do what you do. Some people mix together the mission and the purpose at the same time. So feel free to do the same.
The more I think about it, the more I tie my mission into probably the company that I'm working for. And I think what's really important is with Gymshark, what we're trying to do is unite the fitness community. We're trying to inspire and enable as many people to step up to the bar and raise it. So my mission is to empower as many creators and partners that we have around the world to help inspire their communities to just live a healthier and fitter life. And if I can play a very small part in a couple of people going on to live a healthier and fitter life, then amazing, you know what I mean? And obviously to be as successful as possible to provide for my family. But I had a couple of jobs, like graduate programs lined up at like banks and stuff like that, but I wasn't really excited about it. I remember this conversation with my mother. I sat down with her talking about how I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be. And I didn't really want to do those graduate-esque programs because they didn't feel appealing or interesting to me. So I always remember she's like, what 5 companies do you really, really like? Look online and just apply for them. And I just started getting into fitness and lifting in the gym. So I was working, I was using a company called My Protein, a supplement brand. So that was one of them. I was always a big sports fan. So Nike, Adidas were always on the list. And then obviously brands I've always liked and have always been a part of my life was Google and Apple. So I applied to all 5 companies. 4 didn't get back. 1 got back. That was My Protein. And they offered me to come over to the UK, interview for the role. So I'd been there for a couple of years, doing a lot of stuff within marketing and trading. But I'd always been a big fan of YouTubers because I just started getting into the gym. So Matt August, Chris Lovato, Lex Griffin, Steve Cook, Simeon Panda, you name it. And they were starting to explore the world of influencers, but no one was really taking ownership of it. So I kind of used my passion, which was going home to watch YouTube. And I started bringing that into the company, being like, oh, why don't we try working with this person, or we try doing this? Rather than I was just going for professional athletes, looking at these YouTubers whose bread and butter was fitness. Had some success there in terms of getting the business to buy into it more and more. And it just got to a point where, leadership in the business were like, listen, you seem good at this. You seem good with people. I've always thought that being Irish and my Irish accent is quite an advantage to me. It can be seen as quite welcoming. It opens doors for me. So being able to get to know people and work with people and connect with people also went hand in hand for myself. So they handed me over the influencer stuff and I started running that. And then I suppose within a year later, I managed to get in touch with the guys at Gymshark and got talking with Ben Francis. We had a couple of conversations back and forth, and to the point where he was like, listen, I like what you're about. Do you want to come over to Gymshark? So for me, within the world of fitness influencers, it was like going from a championship team to manage the Real Madrids or the Barcelonas or the Kansas City Chiefs of fitness influencers, that Gymshark.
Because I saw multiple videos about Gymshark, and at the beginning it was like, give me just a courseware to friends, right? And these friends were just posting out of I'm gonna do these and so on. So how did it go from a few friends posting on social media, it's still not a job, it's still not a serious thing, to basically the multi-billion-dollar companies and influencers?
Yeah, so I genuinely believe Ben Francis was a pioneer of modern day influencer marketing. I think if you go back 11, 12 years ago to the inception of Gymshark, he was doing influencer marketing without realizing he was actually doing it. So as he was starting to develop the product and get it to a point where he could, package it up to sell, he was following these guys on YouTube at the time, Chris Lovato, Matt August, Lex Griffin, who at the time did 15,000 subscribers on YouTube, which was a fairly substantial audience size, back then on the platform. in which he was always going to their videos for advice because he'd been getting into the gym, and he'd reach out to them and started building a relationship with them, was telling them about this product he was creating. He'd love to send it to them, get feedback from them as to how it fits, fabrics, all that sort of stuff. And as he had been doing this with all of his fitness idols, that he was sending them out product and genuinely just wanting feedback, not even realizing that they were wearing it in the videos, that they too were influential and they were, creating demand and hype around the brand and product. It was only to the point where he'd gone to, in 2014, he'd set all the money he'd saved up, he put it all on an exhibitor ticket to go and be involved at this bodybuilding convention in Birmingham in the UK, where Ben's from, with the hope of, trying to make a few sales and get the brand out there. But he'd also been talking to Chris and Matt Ogus and Jeff Said, these guys who are like, aspiring fitness influencers in the US. We flew these guys out, again, not knowing what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, when the expo opened, all these kids started rushing into the expo and started coming towards Gymshark. Now, Ben could see around, there was all the big bodybuilding supplement stands around his stand. So he didn't think much of it. He's like, oh, they're going to go to all the bigger stands. Hopefully I get a couple of sales here. But what he didn't realize was those guys that he became friends with that were reviewing his product and giving him feedback had these communities, these niche communities that transcended just the US because of social media being a borderless media. All these kids rushed to the Gymshark stand and were coming here to get photos with Matt, with Jeff, with Chris, and they were all buying all the products. What was really interesting, later that day after the expo, Ben went back onto the website because he had ordered some tracksuits in which he set them live on site, and he went from making something like £400 a day to £40,000 in 30 minutes. And I think it was that's when it just started spiraling, and he started realizing it was like, these kids never heard about me, but they were all coming to Jeff, to Ogus, Lovato. So these guys obviously have some form of influence. And then I think that was the light bulb in his mind. He's like, Adidas, Nike, they're all focusing on David Beckham and all these sports stars. But within my realm and within the niche that I'm in, the David Beckhams, the Serena Williams, they're these fitness influencers, these PTs, these trainers. They're the people I need to build relationships with.
Hello! Is your brand ready to amplify its reach? Well, the Influencer Marketing Factory is here to do just that. We are a global influencer marketing agency helping brands ignite their growth, from influencer identification to campaign strategy, handling legalities and agreements to managing shipping and logistics. We have it all covered. We work with hundreds of brands across different verticals, from Fortune 500 companies to DTC brands. And we don't just stop there. With detailed ROI analysis, we help brands like yours measure success, transforming impressions into actionable conversions. You can find us at the influencermarketingfactory.com or just search the Influencer Marketing Factory on Google.
Yeah, it is very interesting to think about that. Now we take it for granted, right? Yeah, of course, it's an influencer, it's going to promote my product, but 12 years ago, it was a new concept. So I wanted to ask you, notice anything specifically to maybe the industry of gyms and this community online when it comes to influencer marketing?
I feel like social media almost changes every day. In the last 10 years, there's been so many drastic changes, but I think the one thing that people probably realized was how accessible creators have become through social media, where if I'm Whitney Simmons, I can jump on my Instagram stories, I can start talking to the camera, and my followers, will feel connected to me and feel like I'm talking to them. I can do a Q&A, you can ask a question, I can reply to your answer. You can DM me straight away. You know what I mean? So I think like this level of accessibility, but also the need for authenticity and relatability from the communities has changed drastically. 10 years ago it was only just celebrities, and celebrities were so inaccessible that you could only look at them from afar or on TV or in magazines.
And on this, exactly, we went from, these celebrities, they were not, we were not on the same boat, right? So there was this gap in being relatable. Now, finally, you have someone, you mentioned many names before, I see this person, I trust this person, especially in the gym and in the sports and in the routine, right? I do it also myself. I have a selected people in the fitness space that I follow, and every week or every day, I go to the same video to do the routine. So, I really care to go into those specifics because I find them well. So I wanted to ask you this. since in the gym, especially, like there is this sense of community. You go with friends, you do specific classes, you meet people. You have also this way of being like, okay, every Monday I'm gonna do this, every Tuesday, right? So you have a routine, right? Consistency with that. The same also it is when it comes to the gym and the people that I trust, right? So the long-term partnerships, right? When it comes to influencer marketing are even more important, right? In your industry. How do you make them successful? Are there any tips and tricks for both brands and creators to create the perfect partnership that's gonna last months, if not years?
It's not rocket science as well. And I think so many people and so many brands and business try to overcomplicate it massively. Think about your relationships with your friends. Think about your relationships with your partners. Like, I think what's really important is before you engage yourself in any long-term partnership is understanding is like, what do they want out of this? What do you want out of this? Like having that understanding of what the mutual benefit's going to be and communicating. You know what I mean? Like, communication is the most important thing in the world. Like, you know what I mean? It's interesting, like when you're managing athletes or you're managing relationships with partners, like it's almost having multiple partners in that sense where you need to know them inside out. You need to know the names, the date of births, where they're from, their pets, the pets' names, family, all that sort of stuff. Because again, you're giving that much energy into the partnership. It's going to be reciprocated. So yeah, I think for me the most important things, which are the most simplistic things, are really understanding what both parties want out of this partnership, because that's what's going to form the partnership. You're going to build on what the shared purpose is and communicate, like be consistent with your communication.
I agree. You know, like sometimes even like it's not rocket science, as you said. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's basically just normal relationships, right, between people. Be clear from day one about being on the same page. I like that you say that it's simpler than you think sometimes. So
every potential partner we work with, when we sit down, like blue sky thinking, ideal blank canvas, what you want out of your partnership with Gymshark.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like giving also like the opportunity, right, for each influencer and content creators to be themselves using their tone of voice, because people can see, right, if your favorite influencer change tone of voice and approach during there is an advertisement, right, there is that feeling, right? You can feel it like, oh, it's really forced, it's not authentic, right?
In my opinion, there's a lot of brands out there that still don't understand influencer marketing and creator economy and creators themselves. It's like they've built these audiences, they've built this connection with these people all over the world because of the content that they've created, because the message they've put out there. As soon as you come in and try tell them what to do per se in terms of their content and their message, that's when you know you're not going to get what you want out of it. Now, does there have to be a clear brief? You know, I mean, does the creator need to understand what you want what you want to get out of this? Yeah, absolutely. But then let them go and create. If you're clear on what your ideal outcomes are, give the artist the brush and let them paint, let them create.
Changing gear for a second, you said before that during COVID, of course, videos skyrocketed like in terms of numbers because everyone was at home. I did it myself. Everyone did it. Basically, little like sort of a gym in house, right? With your computer, your YouTube, or whatever. So I wanted to ask you this. Let's look into social versus physical stores, right? With everything that is happening these days with social commerce, right? I'm curious, what is the approach of Gymshark? Because I saw that I think you guys are also, I don't want to say doubling down on retail, but you are expanding, right? More on the physical stores, right? So tell me a bit the pros and cons of each. So the physical store experience versus the social commerce. I'm curious to see how you see both of them. Can they stay together? Are you focusing more on one of the two? Pros and cons for each.
So I think a couple of years ago, it would probably be more cons than pros. I think with today's day and age and technology, I think you're able to connect IRL to URL. You mean, and how we look at it, you know what I mean? So you can connect elements of social commerce through to retail and bring all that into your ecosystem. I think there's a lot of brands that do it very, very well. I think Nike being one of the brands that and Apple that have a great ecosystem in terms of whether you shop in store or shop online, you still the touch points with the brand is very consistent, and you're brought into their ecosystem. I think social commerce is a lot more scalable than retail in terms of pace, agility, and it can impact your business overnight. Like again, anyone can become viral and famous overnight per se, for whether it's for the right or the wrong reasons. But I think in a world post-COVID, consumer trust with brands is probably relatively fragile. So people are coming back out onto the high streets. From what we see, people are coming back out onto the high streets to shop. They want to shop the physical product. They want to touch it. They want to feel it. They want to try it on. They want that human-to-human interaction. I mean, what we're seeing within the fitness industry is a lot of people are craving community. They're craving face-to-face interaction. You're seeing the rise of run clubs. I mean, fitness events like turf games and high rocks where people are coming out to compete in groups and teams and celebrate fitness together. So, and again, I think it just goes to show, if you understand your consumer and you get the concept right, you can truly create a community in real life as well as online. And I think we've created an amazing community hub for our customer and for the Gymshark community. I mean, what other store do you know that people can walk in and book in time with a personal trainer and learn how to squat and deadlift, but then also be able to participate in a fitness class or go and get some custom products?
Yeah, quite unique. And in fact, I wanted to ask you, do you also still invite athletes or fitness influencers during in store, dedicated events, so, because also that the people want to see them in person, right? So how does it work there? Have you noticed anything that people hear the most? Is it they want to exercise with them? They want to ask them question about content creation? Is it about, I'm trying to understand what happens, right, when they meet their favorite influencer content creators in person?
For sure. We run events every week. Every week there's events, both open to the community and then some are a little bit more exclusive, smaller number of community members. I think what Gymshark's done very well is we've been able to make our athletes accessible to the community. Through our lift events where they're free. All you have to do is queue up, you'll get a chance to meet David Lade, Whitney Simmons, Steve Cook, Francis Ngannou, you name it. Where LeBron James, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi at these other sports brands, they're not really that accessible.
Yeah.
So we've always wanted to make sure that our athletes are accessible, because I think that builds on the emotional connection between the fan, the athlete, and the brand. So I think the interactions vary. With some creators, people want to come in and be able to train with them, to say, oh, I trained with Liana Deeb or I trained with Annalise Cruz. But other kids want to have that more intimate interaction in terms of they have questions, where I wanted to ask David Lade about how we got into fitness. But I think the consistent thing here is we're always trying to facilitate these opportunities and these interactions for the community and the athlete. But it'll definitely vary depending on who.
So basically, before we saw what happened in the past 10 years, again, many different things. 10 years in influencer marketing, it's 100 years in any other industries. So I wanted to ask you this, and my last question for you today is, instead of asking you what is the future of influencer marketing, because it's can be very broad, what would you like to see happening in the influencer marketing / creator economy in the next years?
Okay. I think what I'd like to see happen is some form of control in the adaptation of AI. I feel like AI is coming in quick and it's a hot topic. And I think AI can make a lot of people's lives, easy. I don't know. They can help make people's lives more efficient per se with automation and task automation and task management and all that sort of stuff. But what my fear is that so much AI goes into creators and the content that they produce that they lose the creativity, the authenticity, the relatability elements. And I don't want to see that happen. I think that's my fear. I'd love to make sure that AI is moderated to a certain extent with how they create content, but also for it not to take away from the creators being creative, remaining themselves and really putting in the work to create the content that's got them to where they are today. I think we're seeing a really interesting shift now in the creator landscape, where this whole Mr. Beastification, where he's been so successful that everyone's trying to copy Mr. Beast's content in order to win with the algorithm. But you've got a bodybuilder called Sam Sulek who's taken the world by storm. I think he's amassed probably close to 10 million followers across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram from posting, literally just filming himself talking, training in the gym, talking to the camera, raw, unedited, 40-minute long episodes, uploaded every day. And people have just loved it because he's just being himself, he's being authentic, he's being real, and it's not over-edited, over-hyped. You know what I mean? So people like him are kind of starting a new wave of almost bringing old style content back. So I think that's where my head's at, if that makes sense.
Totally. Fantastic. I think it's a very good point about both AI and also raw content. And I'm also curious to see what is going to happen in the next future. But Callum, thank you so much for joining me today, for sharing your story and Gymshark story, because it's been like quite a roller coaster, right? There from the beginning, right? From the, as you said, just sending things to creators, see what happens, to having basically one of the most important companies in the industry so far.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
This was the Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory, and I'll see you next week.